were analyzed in detail from this data collection. 68 sites, 430 incidents. We asked them to describe the incident, to rate its seriousness on a Likert scale of 1, not at all, somewhat, 2, quite, 3, or extremely 4. So 1 to 4. We also asked 7 prevention questions, which covered 38 variables, and 7 cause questions, which covered 35 variables. And we asked 2 additional questions. How important in this incident was accidental or malicious behavior? Accidental or, and then accidental or, what was the other word? Basically, the 2 questions tried to distinguish between accidents and problems that occurred and malicious in terms of intent. To give you an example of the way the questions were listed, we would say something like this in a cause question. In this incident that you've described, how important on a scale of 1 to 4 was lack of training and education for A, system administrators as the cause of this incident? And they scored 1, 2, 3, or 4. How important as a cause of this incident was lack of training or education for non-IT personnel, for faculty, for students, for system, administrators, whatever. So there were 6, 7, or 8 variables in each one of the cause questions, and likewise in each one of the prevention questions. By getting them to actually score the importance of that variable in causing the incident on a scale of 1 to 4, we were able to get an objective score that we could then begin to cluster and look at in our statistical analysis. We also asked questions about the adequacy of their procedures, and we asked them how important were the following items as a stimulus to action when an incident occurred. And in those variables, we asked things like, how important was the type of machine on which this incident occurred as a stimulus to action? How important was the number of people affected? How important was the potential of damage to institutional reputation or the potential of harm to an individual in this incident as a stimulus to action? And at the end, we asked each individual for each incident to recommend the best practice for preventing the incident from occurring in the future, for mitigating the incident, and for managing the incident, so that we could share those best practices with other colleagues. I have up here in the front some examples of, in case you want to pick those up after, of some of the incidents that have occurred. Let me just give you a sample, very brief sample. You don't have those, by the way. I didn't distribute those, but you could pick one up after. Here's one I just opened up. Let's give you an example. This incident, and these are in the words of the person who actually gave us the incident. We had a student who was able to enter student academic records, trying to prove to the college how insecure the system was. No malicious intent was implied, but he did enter the system and accessed records of other students. The student self-reported to an IT technician, but also shared it with a number of friends. Weeks later, the student went back to see if the problem had been fixed. An investigation showed that the student had gone deeper this time than he had originally intended and viewed other students' records. The student also tried to change his own record, but was unable to manipulate the data, just view it. The subject called the student into her office, given the opportunity to acknowledge his transgression or to send it to a community review board. The student was very candid from the beginning, and his admission was pretty much the same as what IT had discovered in their independent investigation. Okay, I can go on that, but you can see that in that kind of an incident, it was an unauthorized access to data records and some attempt to manipulate the records. The student was supposedly trying to show how vulnerable the system was, and we do have a number of incidents of that type. Here's another one. We got the MyTub worm into our systems. A contractor was on site. We have a number of incidents where contractors are involved. He went out onto the network to check his email, and he picked up the worm. He was on a machine that was on our network and therefore spread the worm to our machines. This was a 0-day outbreak, therefore the antivirus updates were not yet available. This caused our system to participate in the distribution of the worm. We then were blacklisted because the viruses were coming out of our network. We have a tool that tracks down the IP address and locates the machine. We contacted the contractor and said that you have to turn off your machine and fix it. Our own systems were protected, so it was not a case of infection, but rather the blacklisting of our systems due to this one machine that was sending out infected transactions. So there's another example, again having to do with an external person coming in and causing that kind of a problem within the systems. Actually, it caused a problem for the university by being blacklisted. Here's another one. A female student reported that some pictures that she had taken of herself naked to document her weight loss, which she had stored on her computer, were posted on the web. One of her male housemates had accessed her machine and taken the pictures for posting on his publicly accessible website. Another housemate had heard about it and told the girl. The girl was very clear that this was a violation of her privacy and a theft of property. She wanted to prosecute the act. She discussed the incidents with the ethics project personnel. The IT staff confirmed the existence of the pictures in a publicly accessible site. The student was very clear that she had done nothing to expose the pictures herself or encourage the sharing of the images. The complaint was taken to law enforcement, who took the student very seriously, the student incident very seriously. The male student was confronted and confessed that he had done this, and it was settled out of court for a financial sum. Okay, there I've given you a couple that are basically people-focused incidents in that. Let's see if I can grab another one here just... An employee was traveling home on a Thursday night and was traveling by train. Some trains were old, and he placed his bag in a wire cage above his head and left it there when he left the train. The laptop was encrypted. It contained a full copy of the customer database. Incident was escalated to the group board level immediately. The respondent believed that most laptop theft is from criminals who will format resell laptops relatively low. However, the impact of any data release is high. Legal department, media, customer relations, business, and business folks facing people for that area were very concerned. Eventually, we put together a worst possible plan of action. Within core group, we have an encryption program. We began to place encryption on all laptops to prevent any unencrypted laptops leaving the business, and so on and so forth. So there's a case of an employee not taking care of the laptop. Now, there's plenty more that we can look at, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a sample of the kind of incidents. There are viruses, there are malicious employee actions. One of the worst things that you can have, and the greatest number of incidents that occur come from within organizations, not outside of organizations. This malicious employee action one is one where a student was angry about, a student employee was angry about working conditions within their department, went into the server room and dumped their Coke on the server, fried the motherboard, but just dumped the whole thing on and left. So there are a number of different kinds of incidents, and they have motivations that are all over the place. So what did we find in all of this? Well, the thing that I want to say about this research, first of all, was not only is it the first time that we've been able to look at in detail incidents from corporate and not-for-profit environments and compare them with the incidents from colleges and universities, but it is the first time that we have had enough incidents in our sample to be able to do factor analysis and a deeper statistical analysis of what we had there in terms of responses. So I was very excited to be able to do factor analysis with this material. And what we do in factor analysis, we're basically asking of all the responses to all